My question to Mr. Paul Finley is this, that the American nation today is on the side of Israel, and therefore it is alienating itself from the Muslim world. It is also becoming well, I'm trying to get the question across. In other words, the American nation is sacrificing itself and become an enemy of the Muslims. I would like to ask you the question, the Americans who are a democratic society, how did they allow themselves to become enslaved by the thinking of a few Zionists in their country? How did they allow themselves to become enslaved in their minds? The second question is this. It's tied up with this. It's just tied up with this, and you can answer at the same time. The second question is this, that don't you think if Israel is set up for destruction, then America will also have to be set up for destruction, because the destruction of America will be the destruction of Israel, and if Israel is destroyed, don't you think that America is destroying itself by supporting Israel? So if Israel is set up for destruction, then similarly America will destroy itself in the process by supporting Israel. Those are the two questions.
Thank you, brother.
I hope I grasped the two questions. The first, I believe, is why has the United States become the slave of the State of Israel? Does that summarize the question accurately? At the risk of trying to sell my book, that's what my book is all about. I was defeated in my bid for re-election to Congress in 1982 after having served 22 years representing a rural area, an agricultural district of the state of Illinois. I was defeated because I was the only member of the Congress who was challenging U.S. policy in the Middle East, that is to say, who was criticizing the support our government was giving to the State of Israel. The only one out of 535. In the U.S. Senate are 100 members, 2 from each state. In the House of Representatives, there are 435 members. 535 people altogether. And ladies and gentlemen, as of today, there is not one of those 535 members willing to speak out for what is best for America, for what is best for humanity, and unwilling to speak out to challenge the policies that our government carries out, which provides blind support to the State of Israel. Now, I could keep you here all night and explain in detail why it is that every one of these 535 elected representatives of the American people are so terrified of Israel's lobby that they dare not speak out and challenge what is going on today. One would think that given the terrible brutality that is visited every day of the year against the poor Palestinians in the occupied territory, that the American congressmen, the American senators would be lined up 50 deep every day in their chambers to speak with outrage and anguish about what was going on in the occupied territory. But you can search the congressional record, which prints every word that is said in both chambers of the Congress, and not find one word of criticism of Israel for its behavior. In a nutshell, it is because the American congressmen are afraid of the power of Israel's lobby. They are convinced that if they challenge the lobby, they will pay a price next election day, and politics is survival. They all want to be reelected. Now, why are they terrified? Don't they hear from their constituents who are concerned about what happens in the occupied territory? The truth is, most of the American people today are asleep. They don't know what's going on. They're worried about their own pocketbook, their own job, their own family, their own neighborhood, their own city, their taxes. They don't give much attention to what's going on in the Middle East. And they do not realize, as this gentleman's second question suggests, that the price they will ultimately pay for their blind support of Israel's military policies may be a terrible price indeed. It's eating away at the foundations of American democracy. Israel's lobby has been able to stifle dissent, to frighten members of Congress, to keep them from speaking out. It has also reached its arms of influence out into the universities and colleges. It has reached the business community, now only a tiny portion of the American population is supporting the lobby for Israel in the United States. But that tiny portion of the population supports it with such zeal, such fervor, such persistence, that it is able to dominate the debate on Capitol Hill and control almost to a total degree the making of U.S. policy in the Middle East. It's a dreadful situation that threatens the cherished institutions of the United States. All that is needed is for the American people to stir themselves, to become aware of what's happening, to know about the power of Israel's lobby, to become aware of the fact that they share the guilt of the dreadful atrocities being perpetrated against the Palestinians every day in the year. They will then exercise their influence through the electoral process, and changes will come. It's my hope that my book and the work of others in the peace field will somehow awaken the American people, create understanding in time to avert the dreadful calamity that this gentleman's second question forecasts. Thank you.
On the question of is the book free or should we pay for it, please let it be known that if the price of the book has to be what it really is, then 5 rands would be by far insufficient. The book has been heavily subsidized by the Islamic Propagation Center of Durban, and Mr. Paul Findlay doesn't make anything on it. Thank you. Next question, please.
I do believe that the Jews and the Arabs have come from one seed, and that seed is Abraham. And they ought to be brothers. But the question is that they are not brothers today because they're still fighting against each other. Now, Mr. Deedat uses the Holy Bible for a lot of his questions, for a lot of his answers. I would like to ask Mr. Deedat to quote from the Bible, from Genesis chapter 16 and verse number 11 and 12 to answer that question.
Why are the Jews and the Arabs split? They're still fighting, and you want him to quote from Genesis?
If Mr. Deedat can please use the Bible again as he normally does to give an answer for the reason why they are still fighting today. Genesis chapter 16, verses number 11 and 12.
Could you read the statement in the Bible?
This is the angel of the Lord which spoke to Hagar in the desert. He said, "You are now with child, and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility towards all his brothers."
So,
That's why there is still fighting today between the brothers, which are supposed to be brothers, because Bible gives us prophecy that this will happen, that they will live in hostility towards each other. Mr. Deedat have quoted from the Bible. When he used the Bible, the question is, why are they still fighting against each other?
thank you.
I think that in a way you are answering the question yourself. Why are they fighting one another? That is what we want to know. We are presenting to you, said, look, they have no reason to fight. As brothers, a prophecy had been made. You talk about prophecies. In the book of Genesis, chapter 17, where God Almighty promised to Abraham, He said, "I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger,